What is going on, Tender Crew? My name is Billy the Squid, and I have it figured out, I think. I want to talk to you guys about Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 and what they are planning on doing with the big ending of Final Fantasy VII Intergrade and what exactly they have planned with the big scene. Because my theory, I think, has a lot of good stuff coming to it, and I'm just going to get right into it. But before we do that, spoilers for anybody who hasn't finished Final Fantasy VII Intergrade or the Yuffie DLC. This is going to be delving into stuff that was in both of those. So if you haven't played the game or at least watched what happens or know what happens, click away now and come back when you do, because this theory is going to incorporate all that information. All right, so at the end of the game, we find out that the Whispers that we've been seeing throughout the entire game are actually arbiters of fate. And they have the sole purpose of keeping this version of the game and this version of the universe in line with what the original storyline is. So anytime anything was going to deviate, these creatures stepped in and made sure that that didn't happen. It started off as innocently as Cloud's not going to go on that second reactor bombing, so he'll never meet Aerith. Well, we need to go and mess up Jessie so that she's not able to go, so Cloud takes her place. And to as extreme as Sephiroth stabbing Barrett and Barrett dying, and then the ghosts are like, yo, wait a minute, Barrett doesn't need to die yet, Barrett can't die yet, so they bring him back. It is so much so that they actually meta bring it in as the final boss of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And with them defeating this, basically fate is open. They have opened up part 2 of the remake to not have to follow the constraints of the original game. This is all common knowledge. This is all well known. Second part that is important to this is when they broke this up, it opened up a multiverse situation where Zack doesn't die on his return to Midgar from Shinra forces. He actually is able to completely defeat them. He gets Cloud back to Midgar safely. He is still alive. This is an alternate timeline, as they show, with the stamp bag flying past with a different breed of stamps, so we know it is an alternate universe version of the events. So that explains how Cloud's able to keep his Buster Sword and how Zack is also shown with a Buster Sword there. But the thing that changes things up, and this is only seen at the end of the Yuffie DLC, is Zack goes back to see Aerith, and when he returns to the church, things aren't great. A bunch of people are in the church dying, crying. It looks like a horrible, horrible thing has happened at the church. And it is widely speculated that his version of Aerith may have died to a Shinra attack at the church. So what does this mean moving forward? Well, for one, Zack and Cloud cannot exist in the same universe, in the same timeline. They cannot exist side by side. So I have a feeling the part 2 is going to keep these two very separate up until a critical point, and that's going to be the big moment, and you know the big moment we're all talking about. But up until then, I do not believe that these two universes, these parallel universes, are going to intermingle in any meaningful way, other than maybe Aerith getting some premonitions or whatnot. I have a feeling they're going to keep most of the open world type stuff with the main gang, and then there'll be segments of linear stuff with Zack as he's trying to figure out what's going on, what happened with Aerith, and what is going on with Shinra. Maybe him going out and venturing to what would eventually be a meetup place for the two groups if something happened to make the universes combine. But why can't Zack and Cloud exist in the same place? Well, there's a bunch of different reasons. Some of them are more story-based, some of them are more gameplay-based. Let's start with the easier ones first. Gameplay-wise, it would not make a lot of sense to have two Buster Sword users in the same game. Final Fantasy VII Remake did a very good job at making every single character feel unique from one another in how they attack, how they fight, and all that other fun stuff. And I feel like it would be redundant to have two of the, at least what I would assume would be very similar fighting styles within the same team. It just wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be fun unless they wildly changed up Zack's fighting style from Cloud, which I don't think that they really would. But from a more storyline perspective, it would completely ruin Cloud as a character. If somehow Zack was able to merge early into the Final Fantasy VII main universe, Cloud is a character driven completely by grief almost. So much to the fact that he has adopted part of Zack's personality into himself because he cannot cope with Zack dying for him. It is ingrained in the character, and if Zack somehow came into this universe, it would break Cloud as a character. He would no longer have that motivation. He would no longer have that aspect of him be relevant. And on a lighter note on that, it would also mess up the demographic between Cloud, Aerith, and potentially Tifa in how things go. Which, if they end up keeping Aerith alive, because spoilers, that is looking like what it is going to be. The big change is going to be changed because they have broken free of fate. Aerith is now free to not have to die to Sephiroth's blade. But if Zack lives and Cloud is still there, it is going to completely shift that whole demographic so that Cloud is now going to be an outsider in a relationship almost. But that's not really important. The main factor is that with Cloud being the way he is and how his character is fundamentally built, they cannot have Zack and him exist at the same spot. So how are they going to do this? Like I was saying before, I have a feeling most of the open world type stuff is going to be with the main gang: Tifa, Barret, Red, Yuffie potentially, Cloud, Aerith, all of that gang. And then they're going to have some alternate, parallel, more linear-based things in plan for Zack. Up until the big scene, the scene where Aerith is supposed to die. And I have a feeling this is where something is going to happen. I don't know specifically what is going to happen that is going to bring these universes together, but I have a very strong feeling that at this moment, the universes are going to be brought together. I don't know if Zack is going to have Aerith's body from his universe, and he's going to be bringing her to the pool to try to bring her back or give her her rest so that she can be one with the planet. I don't know what is going to motivate him to seek out this particular spot. I don't know what is going to happen to bring the universes together. I don't know if they're going to bring the Whispers of Fate back and have to do another round 2 that is going to tie things together, or if by killing the Whispers of Fate, they have opened up something even worse. Or, I really hope this isn't the case, but they might do another Sephiroth fight. But since they capped this one off with the Sephiroth fight, I feel like capping each game off with a Sephiroth fight might not be the best way to go about it, especially if you're wanting to keep each game feeling separate from each other and feeling unique, unless you can drastically change how the Sephiroth fights take place.
What the hell is this?
So I've laid out the scene. Both teams are at the same location. Some unknown force is happening. Maybe Aerith bridges the gap with some of her magic, some of her, like, will of the planet, being able to bring everything together. And then, as those worlds get brought together, Zack, the first thing he sees is Aerith standing in the position that she is when she dies in Final Fantasy VII, and he sees Sephiroth descending from the sky. This is the whole purpose of him maybe being here, is to be able to bring her back or find a way to bring her back. He sees the woman he loves. He sees the only motivation that I can reasonably see Square Enix giving him to pursue moving forward. And he would do what any person in that situation would do. He would charge headlong towards her, move her out of the way, and I have a feeling Zack is going to be the one to take the blow at the end of that segment. I feel like he is going to be the heroic sacrifice and take place of Aerith in the part 2, if the part 2 gets to that point. But I almost guarantee that at that point, Zack is going to be the one to take the fall. It might not work out exactly like that. That's just how I have it theory crafted in my head. Let me know what you all think of this theory down below in the comments, and let me know what your theory crafts for what Final Fantasy VII Part 2 will bring. I have a feeling they're going to be sticking pretty close to the story beats. For the most part, we're going to go to the same locations, maybe do similar things, but with Fate being untethered there are definitely going to be a lot of different outcomes to the things that end up going on, which I think is a good and refreshing thing for the franchise. It keeps the original feeling like it is worth playing, while also making this one hold true enough to the original and familiar enough to the original that old players can appreciate it and new players don't have to have played the original to really get it. So let me know what you all think in the comments below. This is my Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 theory craft. And if it ends up happening, we'll be back to say I told you so. But until then, much love, Tentacrew. Bye-bye.